Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're really excited to join you tonight as we bring Ruby and Emily into the studio so we can talk a little bit about the Zululand Rhino Orphanage, and their time with this amazing orphanage a few weeks ago. So welcome, Ruby. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. Hey, Emily, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
So first of all, I know you've been back now a couple of weeks. How does it feel to be back after that experience?
Not good. I'd rather be there. I'd rather be in South Africa again.
I bet. And how about you, Emily?
Yeah, same really. I mean, it's sort of nice to be back and just like look through my photos and I sort of relive it through that. But yeah, I'd rather be still there.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to dive into some of the aspects of Ruby and Emily's time with the Zululand Rhino Orphanage, and we're going to break it down into a few different sections. Their lead up to the trip, their first week there, their second week there, and then some of their thoughts since they've got back. So to start us off with, I think maybe the best thing is, and as Ruby and Emily are sort of sharing their journey, I'm going to share some pictures at the same time. To start us off with, Ruby, why don't you tell us a little bit about your sort of planning and sort of, preparation for going on a trip like this?
Yeah, so I guess we both kind of decided to go, not last minute, but it hadn't been in the works for a long time. But I mean, it was just like email communication with Roger, and then quite soon we set up a video call where I discussed kind of my expectations, and then you kind of managed them. And I asked all the questions I had, because I had a lot of questions, because I mean, on the website, it's not vague, but there are a lot of questions that I still had. So then Roger talked me through everything, all of my queries and all of the costs and everything, because I wasn't sure about that, and just made sure that we were kind of on the same page about the expectations and what it was going to be like, which was good. And for planning, I guess, I don't know, just packing. The packing list on the Expedition Project website is pretty good. I needed basically all of that. But I mean, if anyone is thinking of going, they can contact either me or Emily, I'm sure, and we can help you with anything extra you might need that we might recommend or that type of thing. But yeah.
Perfect. And how about you, Emily? So you kind of got brought on board by Ruby, who obviously wanted to travel with someone. And yeah, how did that whole planning and sort of prep and expectation side go your side?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different for me because I've always been really interested in like African wildlife and stuff, but yeah, I've never been to Africa before. Ruby has, and she sort of mentioned to me that she was looking for somewhere to go, and then she came to me with the Rhino Orphanage and she said, do you want to come? And at first, I was really like, oh yeah, like I obviously want to come, but I'm sure I'll be busy or something. And then I just thought, actually, why am I not just going to go? Like I had a look on the website, on the Expedition Project website, and I just thought it looked incredible. So yeah, I didn't really know what to expect, I suppose, because like I said, I've never been to Africa before. But I was just really excited. I mean, I've always loved rhinos. I was like really excited to see the work going on out there, because I know rhinos are having a pretty hard time. So I just spoke to Ruby, and then I spoke to Roger, and he was really helpful. And we just like went through again what Ruby said, but what to expect, and had a look at all the planning. And it was like really helpful having Roger to speak to and the website and everything, because I sort of decided to go quite late. So I was like sort of in a rush to get everything done. So that was really useful, having someone sort of on the end of the phone. For Roger, I was always like asking questions and emailing and stuff. So yeah, it actually, considering how sort of last minute it was and how big the trip is, it was actually quite easy to organise, which was really sort of nice. But I don't know what Ruby thought, considering Ruby's been to Africa before. I don't know if your expectations were different.
I knew it'd be good, because I mean, I loved South Africa last time I went, and I did kind of it wasn't an orphanage or anything, but it was with conservation work that I went last time. So I knew it would be good, and it was just, well, better than I was expecting. But like, my expectations were high, let's say, and it surpassed that. So.
Oh, such an amazing intro. Thanks, guys. So just to give everyone watching a little bit of context, so the Zululand Rhino Orphanage is an amazing project that is relatively new in the grand scheme of things, and it has sadly been born out of tragedy because of the rhino poaching epidemic that is facing South Africa and a lot of Africa as well. And they are basically a safe haven for orphan rhinos. And it gives them a chance to sort of rehabilitate them and get them back up to speed, and then obviously ideally sort of release them again. The orphanage does take on board volunteers and students such as Ruby and Emily, but they are looking for very sort of specific students, very specific volunteers. They have to be passionate about what they're doing and conservation, and obviously willing to sort of adapt to the situations that the orphanage faces. So it is an amazing experience, as we're going to hear about over the next sort of half an hour or so, and well worth sort of reaching out if it is something you're interested in. But there's a lot of other ways that you can get involved as well, because obviously not everyone can get all the way out to South Africa, or even if you're in South Africa, not everyone can make it to where the orphanage is, or to help sort of firsthand. So there are a lot of other ways which we're going to speak about towards the end of this chat about how you can help, and some things that Ruby and Emily are obviously doing since their trip as well. But to start us off with, I think let's break it down with week 1 and week 2. You guys were out there for 2 weeks. Which is not a lot of time, but also there's so much that you can do, and there's so much that I think now that you're looking back at it, that you realize how much you actually managed to do in those 2 weeks. So I'm going to be sharing some pictures as you're both talking, but Ruby, maybe you want to kick us off and sort of talk about week 1, from your sort of arrival and getting there and your first impressions, and then some of the things you got up to, and then obviously Emily, you can jump in at any point.
Okay, so yeah, we arrived on the Monday, and the flights were a bit stressful, but that's just British Airways. Everything's a bit crazy with flights at the moment. But as soon as we got there, it was fine. At Durban, we were picked up by Simone and Louis, who are from the orphanage. They met us, and then there's a 3-hour drive from the airport to the orphanage, and we stopped at a supermarket on the way there, just to get some shopping. So. And then when we arrived, the sunset was really pretty in the car on the way there. And then we arrived at the orphanage, it was dark, because the sunset is pretty early. I think it was like 5:30, which I don't know, going from English summer to that, it was, because it's their winter time, it was just so early, but it was good. And we were really tired after the day of traveling. So basically we just had tea, then went straight to bed. And then on the second day, we were up, and there are 5 feeds a day, 7 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and 7 p.m. So every 3 hours throughout the day. So we got up and we do the 7 a.m. feed on the first day, and we're kind of shown the ropes. It was like very much just settling in. And then we clean out the rhinos every morning. So you pick up any poo in the bomas, and you wash kind of their sleeping area and remove any dirty straw or anything like that. And then there are 2 hippos called Charlie and Moomin, and we go and we feed them. We went and fed them every morning, give them pellets and like hay. And they really like the pellets. They open their mouths and you can like chuck them in. It's quite funny. And then on Mondays, it's kind of a bit of a spring clean. You do some general cleaning, sweeping, that sort of thing. And then on the evenings, me and Emily would like to sit on top of the container where the rhinos live and watch the sunset. And it's really nice. The sunset's always beautiful. And then on the third day, we went onto the reserve, and we were actually able to see a dehorning, which was incredible. So that was done by Mike the vet. And it was actually a male black rhino, which was it was just so good to see, because black rhinos are the rarer of the 2 African rhino species. And it was just so action-packed. It was the helicopter flying in and darting the rhino, then the ground team. We were in one of the game viewers, and we kind of rushed in, then they put the blindfold on, they put the earplugs in, and then we all jumped out of the vehicle and then went to see how everything was going. And we got to get involved. It's like they take samples for DNA. So they take like a skin scrape, a hair pluck, that type of thing. They take a bit of the horn after they've cut it off. So they ask you to get involved. So Emily measured the horn, and I like sprayed antiseptic on the horn after. And that was pretty cool, being able to get involved. And they encourage you to take lots of pictures and that sort of thing. But that was really fun, action-packed, and it was also good just to be on the vehicles and in the reserve, because that was our first taste of being in the wider reserve, not just the little compound that the orphanage is on. And it was just so fun. And actually, when we got out of the vehicles, we looked in the distance and saw 2 lions, and we were like, how? Like, we go on a game drive and sometimes don't get that lucky, but then when we're going for a dehorning, something really cool, there were 2 lions right there watching. And then on the 4th day, sometimes there are guests come from the lodges on the reserve to watch the feeds. So some guests came in the morning, and then we actually had the opportunity to go to a different vet practice run by a guy called Trevor, and he was really nice. And he told us, he was really helpful and told us everything he was doing and let us get involved where we could. So that morning we went to Trevor's vet practice, and we watched him do some consultations, and he did a bitch spray while we were there, and just things like blood smears, fecal flotation, a lot of the problems with parasites. So that was cool to see a different side of veterinary medicine. And then we drove to a farm where Trevor pregnancy diagnosed 300 cows, which was pretty cool. It was intense and it was really hot, but he let us get involved, and he was kind of being like, oh, feel this one. This one's easy to feel. And it was still hard to feel. and then he was like, oh, feel this one. It's really far along. And then some of them were easier to feel than others. And we did get the hang of it a bit. And then it was one of the days Trevor came to the orphanage actually for a problem with one of the rhinos. Oh no, it was to dehorn. It was to dehorn Lecco, and he ground down Tweed's horn a little bit. And that was also really interesting to see how it worked on the orphans rather than out in the wild where you have to kind of find them and dart them from the helicopter. It was interesting to see it in a more like controlled environment. And yeah, we were able to get more involved because there were fewer people watching, whereas on the dehorning from the reserve, there are guests can come and watch as well, whereas for this one it was just us, so we were allowed to bring them round from the anaesthetic, which was so cool. Then we also went to see 2 male cheetahs get the TB test results read. So Trevor had previously darted them and done the TB test, and then he had to dart them again, and me and Emily went in with him while he read the results of the TB test, because these cheetahs were going to be relocated to a different reserve, so they need to be obviously tested for TB. Thankfully, they were both negative, but it was, again, really cool to see, and we got to bring the cheetahs around. That was so cool. And then I think the next day, we just kind of cleaned out the rhinos, did the usual, did all of the feeds, fed the hippos again. And we also went on a drive to try and find some of the orphans that had previously been released. They're called Kula, Benoy and Zimmy, but we couldn't find them. We were using telemetry. It was cool, but we didn't see them because we couldn't get to where they were because it was like a really thick bush. And I think that's week 1. Do you have anything to add, Emily? I went through that quite quickly, I think.
That's amazing that's only week 1 as well. That's absolutely incredible summary, Ruby. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know it's sort of like we finished week 1 and we just thought, how on earth is it going to get better than that? Like, we've done so many things, but yeah, I think I sort of feel the same as you, Ruby. One thing I did really think from week 1, just like a sort of added extra, is that everyone was so friendly and welcoming. Like, I know when you go on placement, sometimes it's a bit nerve-wracking, especially in a completely different country, because you just never know how it's going to be. And the whole team were just so nice, so helpful. Simone, the manager, she just like let us get involved in so much, and she was so patient with us because obviously we never knew how to look after rhinos and all of this. So she was great. Then she came along to a lot of the trips with us, which was really fun because we got to know her. And yeah, so she just introduced us to all these great people and really helped us settle in week 1. So it's good.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Thank you both so much. And yeah, so that's only week 1. And just to bring everyone up to speed, if you're just sort of tuning in, we're speaking to Ruby and Emily from Nottingham University, who recently went out to Zululand Rhino Orphanage, and they're just sort of relaying some of their amazing experiences from their 2-week trip out there. Now, this kind of trip, it is ideal for students like Ruby and Emily, who are veterinary medicine students, but obviously anyone who's interested in conservation and passionate about, protection of these amazing animals, it is great for them. And the nice thing about the small team there and the orphanage there and all the people that help run it is there's so many different aspects. So if you do have different levels of passion, be it zoology, ecology, conservation, veterinary medicine, and so on. So there's lots of little things that you can draw out from a trip like this, which is amazing, really. Yeah. So that's week one. Thank you so much. Now week two, over to you, Emily.
Yeah. So like I said before, we had such a jam-packed week one. We were sort of preparing ourselves to just spend the next week just at the orphanage and quite relaxed, and then that ended up being obviously amazing as well. So we started off the week, I think we actually had quite a quiet day after we went to TB test the cheetahs. So like Ruby said earlier, we just sort of fed the rhino. They quite often have guests coming through. So we sort of it's quite interesting listening to them and seeing them interact with the rhino, because obviously they've been out in Africa and seeing lots of different rhino in the wild. So that was quite interesting. And then we did a trip to the shop. So that was quite good just to top up on any food that we sort of were running low on, because we cook for ourselves, obviously in the orphanage. So we also bought a load of supplies for the game drive that was going to be happening the next day for the local school community. So that was really fun. And we went with Simone to do that and just pick up some things. And then we did the game drive. So that was amazing. There were about 120 school children. And we all sort of piled into these game viewers and went out on a 3-hour game drive in the morning. And they were all so friendly. And there was a bit of a language barrier, but we sort of tried to work through it. And they all had these little booklets to spot all the different wildlife, and they were counting all the sort of impala, and we saw some zebra, some giraffe. So that was really good fun. And just really nice to sort of be involved with the local community, because we hadn't really been out of the reserve at all, obviously. So that was quite good. And also just to see how the reserve and sort of their conservation initiatives getting the local people involved, which is obviously going to be really important going forward. So that was really good. And then the next day, I think we just sort of sat with the rhino, actually. I can't remember, it was quite quiet, I think. I think Trevor came to look at one of the orphans just to see how they were doing. So that was quite good. And then we sort of had this really special few moments where if it was quiet, we could go and sit with the orphans in the boma and just take photos of them and things. And we did have one moment that was really stuck out to me as one of my highlights, weirdly, even though it wasn't the most exciting necessarily. It was when Tweed and Lecco came over to us and they were sort of interacting with us, and they just lay down next to us and went to sleep. And it was just one of the things that really stuck out to me as being a lovely moment where you've been building this relationship with the rhino sort of for the last 2 weeks, and then they really start to trust you. So for me, that was a really nice moment. And then we were really, really lucky to be able to go and watch this incredible orthopedic surgery on these cheetahs at a different reserve. And that was with Trevor, who we'd seen earlier, and another vet who's a specialist, I think, from a nearby area. So that was incredible. I mean, I couldn't believe that we were able to sort of get involved with that as well. Trevor let us sort of hold the cheetah to help out with the surgery in different ways. And we were able to bring it round as well. I think Ruby did that. So that was really cool. And we just watched the surgeon sort of reconstruct his knee, which I think was quite a groundbreaking surgery because they tried, lots of different things before. So it was really lucky that we were able to watch that. I think it's sort of a once in a blue moon sort of thing. So that was brilliant. And then the next day we went on a pangolin walk. So the reserve where the orphanage is really involved in pangolin rehabilitation. So they're obviously really sort of heavily trafficked mammals. So we went out with the pangolin Ditsy into the reserve. And that was amazing because even though we'd been out into the reserve, we went into a completely different area that was just absolutely beautiful. And we were involved in things like turning over the rocks in the reserve for Ditsy to feed on different ants and termite and eggs and things. So that was really great to be so up close and personal with such a sort of, quite endangered animal and very rare as well. So that was really cool. And then there's so many things that we got stuck in with. We then had a bit of a more of a quiet day, I think. So there was quite a few things around the orphanage. So we were able to get involved with the reserve and do some admin, which was quite interesting to see how that works. And we also painted some wheelbarrows that were going to be used for like decoration. So that was really fun. We spent actually most of our free time painting wheelbarrows, which was really good. And we could do that while the sun was going down, which was just like beautiful every single night. And then you could often hear zebra in the distance or like giraffe walking past. So that was really cool because we were literally just, living life on the orphanage. You see all these amazing wildlife going past. And then when we were going out to see something, I can't remember what it was, we actually saw the orphans that had been released that we'd been looking for the week before. So like Ruby was saying earlier, typically when you're looking for stuff, you never see it. And then when we were on our way somewhere else, we saw the orphans, we saw some elephants sort of having a dust bath. We also saw a lioness like stalking a warthog and stuff. So that was really cool just to see them, out around. And for me, who'd never been to Africa, that was like amazing. So I just couldn't believe that they were right there. So that was really cool. And then we ended the week with this absolutely incredible surprise trip. Thank you to Roger and Simone for helping out with that. So we went to this beautiful lodge on the reserve. It was just like amazing, and because we'd had good accommodation on the orphanage, we had a nice little container to sleep in, and there's a toilet and shower. And then we went to this lodge and we had huge double beds, and it was just so nice. And we had like delicious food. And we went on these 2 game drives. We did a sort of sunset one and a sunrise one, and we saw some lions. We saw the elephant herd right next to us, which was amazing because I think the guide was saying it was quite, he hadn't seen them in a long time because there's only one group of them and they travel obviously so far. So that was absolutely incredible. What else we see? We saw a lot of birds. We saw some hippos, some crocodiles. We were really lucky with our sightings, and they just really looked after us, and it was just such like a really lovely end to such an incredible trip because every time we just thought it couldn't get better, and then it did, genuinely. So it was just really nice. And then we made our sort of very sad journey back to the airport. So but Ruby, I don't know if I've missed anything. It's quite a lot to fit in.
No, I don't think so. One of the highlights for me was the pangolin walk. I loved it. I loved just being kind of out in the bush. It was really fun and just so much going on. And I just loved it. See, she was so cute. And just how she moved was incredible. And they're just one of my favorite animals anyway. Yeah. So getting to see one, I didn't think I'd ever be able to see a pangolin in my lifetime. Yeah. So it was incredible to be able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, even listening to you two talk about, some of your experiences does give me goosebumps because, even when you been in and around and involved in various conservation projects and visited, places like Zululand Rhino Orphanage in the past and everything, the amount that you managed to do in those couple of weeks, plus, getting so up and close with such an endangered species such as pangolin and rhino and it's just absolutely amazing. It just does sound like the time of your life. And I'm just so thrilled for you guys that, it worked out and you had such a good trip because, as we were chatting sort of off air, we were saying, how, these kind of experiences when you're working with wild animals and when you're involved in these kind of projects, they can go any number of directions. You can be lucky with experiences, you can get involved with a lot. It can be quite a slow sort of experience. It can be, anything can happen. And that's the nature of working with animals and wild animals, obviously. So, you guys were absolutely just so lucky with all your experiences. And I'm so thrilled that it was such a good experience for you. So I guess now that sorry, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, sorry, I'm interrupting, but I was going to say, like you were just saying, Roger, with how it can go either way. The one thing that I would say is before Ruby and I went, we really weren't expecting to do any of that, to be honest. We were just sort of expecting to go and work on the orphanage, which would have been amazing. But one thing I would say is if you're going and if that is the experience that you get, if you're just mainly on the orphanage, I'd say it would still be just as incredible because like I said, I never worked with rhinos. Oh, sorry, my dog's barking. I never worked with rhinos before. I didn't know what their behavior would be like and any of this. And there's sort of to see, like, it was such like a nice 2 weeks to see the difference in their behavior with us and like being able to pick up little things and just spend time with them and really get involved in what the orphanage was doing. It's such a special place, and I would say that even if we were just there for the whole day, we still had an incredible day. So that was just like a really, really nice thing to do.
That is such a good point. No, so now just as we sort of wrapping up that section, what I'm going to do now is just show a quick 30-second slideshow for those of you watching on live stream. You might have seen some of the photos I've been showing as Ruby and Emily have been talking. If you're listening via sort of the podcast route, then obviously won't be seeing as many photos, but do go and check out the live stream if you can to get a more sort of immersed into some of the photos and pictures. But here's a quick slideshow of just some of the amazing sort of experiences and pictures that Ruby and Emily took. Check this out. I can see you guys smiling as you're sort of watching that. It's probably still bringing back memories. So now just to wrap up all of this and everything, now that you've been back for a couple of weeks and you sort of had time to think about it, talk about it, tell friends and families about your trip, what are some of your feelings about initiatives like this, or Zululand Rhino Orphanage in general, or just your experience that you've had? Has it meant that you're now more appreciative of it? Have you meant that you've now thought of more things that you didn't realize when you were there? What are some of the thoughts going through your head at the moment? So I'll start with you, Ruby.
Yeah, just being back, it's just like I keep thinking about it like it's a dream. Like it was so good. And I keep thinking, how did we get to do that? How did I watch orthopedic surgery on a cheetah when like tomorrow I'll be watching it on a dog? And I was like, I was watching it on a cheetah. That is so cool. Yeah, just talking to other people about my trip, I'm just makes me more appreciative of everything I got to do, everything we got to do, because we did have such a good time. It was so fun. And also ZRO is just such a good organization, and everything they did was for the rhinos. It was the rhinos first. It wasn't about tourism. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about taking pictures of the rhinos at all. Even when the guests came, it was like the guests are not allowed to feed the rhinos, just in case it makes like negative associations with food, because like the rhinos' welfare comes first, which is at the end of the day what it's all about. And that was really important to me, because I think a lot of the kind of ecotourism conservation efforts where like guests are involved, sometimes I think it loses the message a bit, but it really wasn't lost here. Like it was rhinos first, conservation first, and these rhinos are going to be released. They're not being made tame for people to stroke and that type of thing. They are tame to an extent so that the team at the orphanage can work with them, because they need to be safe for them to be able to be looked after adequately. But they are going to be released. It's nothing like any of the things you sometimes see, or some of the things I have in my head, like the misconceptions. But it was, yeah, so good, so ethical, just a really, really good organization. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And Emily, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, so in terms of just my like overall trip experience since being back, same as Ruby, I just like when I'm sort of talking to people about it and showing people things, I just can't like believe how lucky I was. It's really made me realize, you know, how much we packed in as well, because only going for 2 weeks, you could sort of worry that it's not long enough. But when you get as much in as we did, I couldn't have imagined, you know, anything better. And you talk to people about it and their mouths are just on the floor, and you really realize how special it is that that's what we got to do. So really grateful for that. And yeah, like completely agree with what Ruby said about ZRO. It's just a really special place, and it is really ethical. And I really like appreciated being involved in somewhere that cares so much about conservation and about rhinos, because you could just see everyone that works there on the reserve, Simone, like they care so much about the rhinos that they're working for. I mean, one of them, you know, was feeling a bit down at one point, and Simone was like, you know, checking up on her on the rhino every single, you know, hour of the day, and was really and it just is so nice to know that they're being so looked after. And I didn't realize before I went out there how bad. I mean, I knew the poaching was bad, but I think we're quite sheltered from it. And when we went out there, it really shocked me to hear how, you know, the numbers of poached rhino out there at the moment. And that was really upsetting because, you know, you are at this orphanage and you think, oh yeah, great, cute, you know, baby rhinos, but you sometimes forget why they're there. So, and like Ruby said, the whole team there were really, you know, great at bringing that to the surface and just doing, you could see that they're doing everything that they can to save this species. So, and like the dehornings, they've been really on top of that on the reserve. And that was just like a really eye-opening experience for me. And it has sort of inspired me to be more involved with that in the future because, you know, you don't hear about it every day, but it's still happening. So yeah, that just, it made me sort of feel really like, you know, humbled and lucky that I can say I've been part of, you know, the rhino as a species and have been up close to them. So yeah, that was genuinely really special.
Oh, thank you so much, both of you, for that. Now, I think that probably leads to the next question, which you've led into it so well, Emily, is you know, your sort of next steps now that you're home. I know you're both looking to do some fundraising through the expedition project, and obviously 100% of that money goes back to the orphanage and all that. But you're looking to do some campaigns now just to raise a little bit of money. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that a little bit. Ruby, do you want to talk about what you've got planned?
Yeah, so I'm on placement at the moment at a vet, but soon I'm going to get this in the works. I'm going to, in lockdown, I painted tote bags and kind of sold them to my friends and family. They like sent me kind of designs and I did them like as presents and that type of thing. So that's what I'm going to be doing to raise money. I'm going to do some designs, hopefully rhino themed, Africa themed, and basically just paint on some tote bags and sell them. And hopefully make some money for the orphanage because they really deserve it. And we just had the best time. And if we could do anything to pay them back, that would be great. But also the money will go to an incredible cause because the upkeep of the orphanage is very extensive, very expensive. I can't remember what the exact number was, but Simone told us the figure of how much it costs to get a rhino through from when it arrives to release, and it was mind-bogglingly high. So the funds are definitely needed. Like even running the helicopter for like such a short amount of time for the dehorning is so expensive, but it's so necessary. So yeah, it'll be really good to get some funds in for them.
Oh, it's amazing. And yeah, I think everyone does underestimate even something that seemingly looks quite basic in an operation sense. When you get there, how expensive all the little aspects are and how they do build up. So no, that's amazing. Can't wait to see some of your tote bags, Ruby. Absolutely amazing. Emily, are you going to have any time to do something your side as well?
Yeah, so I'm similar to Ruby. I'm also on placement at the moment. We both got back from the trip and then went straight in, so it's been hectic. But I'm currently starting a painting. Depending on how that goes, I was going to try and maybe sort of make some prints of it or something, but we'll see how that goes. And I was also going to try and probably make some key rings, like put some little designs on there. So quite similar to Ruby, really, but just try and like, yeah, just anything that I can do really that will make a bit of a difference would be great. And yeah, so like Ruby was saying, I think as well that the orphanage, considering how many costs they have, I think Simone was saying that they sort of purely run off donation and things like that. Like that is where they get their money from. So it's sort of really important that when you get these orphans coming in, or you have everything going on in their lives and you really want to do the best you can by them, like it's quite, yeah, and money just really helps with giving them the absolute best chance at life. So yeah, and all the other rhino on the reserve as well, they all really need it. So that was really inspiring to, yeah, I need to get going and make some key rings and stuff.
It's lucky that you're both so artistic, actually, and are able to do this. Absolutely amazing. Can't wait to see all this stuff. So, yeah, keep an eye. We're going to be posting a blog soon about the trip that Ruby and Emily have had, and then some details about fundraising. And you can obviously read up on the Expedition Project website about more details about Zululand Rhino Orphanage, some some past sort of footage that we've got, and also just about the experience if you want to join it yourself as well. Now, it's obviously not a free experience. It is something that you do have to pay for, and this money goes into the running of the orphanage directly. And as Emily mentioned, it is 100% donation driven. This particular orphanage. So the donations just are so important, and also the money sort of generated from experience-based trips like that which Ruby and Emily had are so important just to keeping that orphanage running. So it is so important. Guys, I mean, it's been absolutely amazing speaking to you. Thank you so much for just sharing your time and your thoughts, and all your experiences. We need to be planning your next trip to go out, go back and visit them and somewhere new and all of that. So can't wait to sort of get planning on that. I don't know if you've got any final words before we close this out.
Well, first of all, can't thank, genuinely, this trip would not have been as good as it was without Roger and the expedition project. It was organized so well and cleanly, and any queries that I had or anything, it was answered straight away. And it was just such a well organized trip, and we felt so looked after the whole way through. And just the other thing I would say, as someone who joined on quite late and made the decision quite late, if you want to do something like this and you can, just do it, because you will not regret it. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Very sadly, some wildlife won't be around forever. So any time you can get involved, if you're thinking about doing it and you're not sure, just do it, because it was an absolutely unreal experience. And I just think about it every day, and I'm sure I will for a long time.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily. It's so amazing just to be along this journey with you guys as well, and just hear about it, since you've got back. Ruby, any sort of parting words from yourself?
Yeah, we just genuinely had the best time. It was so much fun, but also so meaningful, and just incredible to be able to get to know the orphans individually. It was so special to see their little personalities, especially by the end of the 2 weeks. We were like, oh, he's so playful, oh, he's grumpy right now, just being able to interpret it. Whereas at the start I couldn't really tell. I was just like, oh, it's a rhino. And Simone would make comments, and you could tell she really knew them, and it was we were starting to kind of click with it a little bit and get more used to it. And it was just great getting into the routine and getting to know everybody at the reserve, who was so kind to us, so helpful, and genuinely just made our trip so special. They really did everything they could to make us feel welcome and have a great time, and we did have a great time. So just, if you can go, if you can afford it, or if you're thinking about it, I'd really, really recommend going, because you will have a great time.
Oh, amazing, guys. Thank you so much. And it's been great just chatting to you about it. I love hearing about all your little stories and everything. So thank you so much. Anyone who is watching this live or on replay, feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions. Ruby and Emily also aren't scary, so they're happy to speak to you about any sort of bits and pieces you want to know firsthand, since they've recently been out. And obviously you can speak to some other volunteers as well if you like, but otherwise reach out to myself and can give you a bit of a breakdown of how it all works, when to go, what to be involved, and stuff like that. But to everyone watching, thank you so much for joining this evening and listening to us talk about this amazing organization. What we're going to do is we're going to play out with a video that we were involved with a little while ago, and it's an amazing, heartwarming story of some of the released rhinos, of which Ruby and Emily were actually speaking about, that they were looking for at one point. And it's a 7-minute long video, so I do recommend you watch the whole thing, because it's absolutely amazing. Check it out. But if you are leaving us now, thank you so much for joining. Really been a great just sharing these stories with you and everything like that. Tune in next time. And just thank you to Ruby and Emily for your time. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. See you guys.
Bye.
My name is Megan Lartakhan, and I've been involved with the Zululand Rhino Orphanage for the last 3 years. And we are very proud to say that we've got to a point where we are happy to release Mpilo and Makosi back into the wild where they belong. This is such a proud moment for us. this is what we strive for, this is our mission, and this is why we do this. Quite emotional, but it's great, it's exciting, and we're so thrilled that they have gotten to a point where we're able to release them back into the wild, where they can form part of a wild population and contribute back to South Africa's wild population.
There's Makosi, she's a big female here, and that is Mpilo, the big male. These two are quite well bonded together, so we're just preparing them for their move, which is hopefully going to be soon.
He's now just over 3 years old, and Makosi is just over 4 years old, which is fantastic. It's a great time to release them. They normally leave their mothers at around 2 to 3 years old, and we want to try to replicate that. They're happy, they're healthy, they're confident animals, and we're extremely happy that this is it's gone so well and we're able to return them back into the wild. A lot of the time people ask me, why are we releasing them together? Rhinos are extremely social animals. In the wild you'll find them in crashes of 4 to 8 animals, sometimes maybe more. Because of that social bond, it's so important to release them or reintroduce them into a new area as a pair. They draw on each other's strengths, and that company is so important because it gives them a little bit more confidence. So it's just to try and replicate what would happen in the wild.
As now it is in the afternoon, we are going to bring the rhinos in. We've prepared them, the pellets, and in these balls we've rolled the omeprazole just for stress, because the 2 rhinos are going to leave us, so we're trying to distress them. We are so sad to see them going because we are losing the part of our family, and at the same time we are just so happy for them because they will get another family at the wild. Are you going to miss us? Philo? Are you going to miss us?
So the day has finally arrived, and today is the day that Makosi and Mpilo go back to where they belong. It's just something that is so close to our hearts here. This is our mission. This is what we do. This is what this facility is here for, to rescue orphaned and injured rhino calves, to care for them until they are healthy and old enough to be returned back to where they belong. So obviously before these animals are released back into the wild, we have to do a whole lot of checks, and we're very happy to say that the vet is extremely happy with their condition. They're at the right age, so everything's lined up beautifully. Another reason why this is just so exciting is that Mpilo, when he was rescued, his mother was poached, and it's a tragic story, but I think the thing that we need to focus on is the fact that he's now going back to where he was born, where he's supposed to be.
Today is the last day for our 2 babies, which is Makosi and Mpilo. They are going to the wild. We're feeling so sad. Our hearts are broken that they are leaving us. And at the same time, we're just so happy that we are releasing them back to the wild, because it's our goal to go to the wild.
We've just watched Mpilo and Makosi walk down the road into their new wildlife. They absolutely beautifully followed Nokwanda because Nokwanda's mom, and they felt comfortable with her. Hey? Happy?
I'm so happy.
Well done.
So proud. So proud. You never really know how it's going to go. And I mean, this is such a beautiful ending. So proud of them, proud of our team, and yeah, it's just amazing.
So we're very excited, obviously, because Mpilo's come back. It was a very sad moment the day his mum died and he had to be taken away. And I'm just so grateful to the Zululand Rhino Orphanage for looking after him over these last couple of years, getting him back, getting him strong again. And yeah, it's just so emotional having him come back and bringing a friend with, growing our rhino population in the process. And yeah, we're just really happy. But some hard work ahead for us now to build on what the orphanage has done and make sure they're safe.